Hello, and welcome back to Create Astral, where last episode we worked our way up to getting our first machine from Industrial Revolution, but we can't quite use it yet. We're gonna have to find a way to get some power to it, and I think the way that we're gonna do that is getting one of these alternators from Create, and this is gonna convert any rotational power into actual power for these machines. We'll just have to grab a few things for this crafting recipe. We should have most of these on hand. I had to craft myself up one of these rolling mills, and this is going to allow us to turn ingots into rods. And then if we throw some plates in there, we're going to be able to get wire. And then these are both going to be used for the recipe for the alternator here. Now we are going to have to make a new create power source to run this, because if we just throw it on one of the things we're already running, it's going to be overstressed by quite a bit. I think what we're going to do is try to get one of these steam engines running, and these are going to use all these blaze burners, which is why I wanted to grab all those extra ones when we made it to the nether the other day. And I've got about 8 left over here. I think the max you can make for a steam engine is 9. So we may run to the nether real quick and grab one more. Here we are. We just need to grab one of these guys. Okay, so with 9 of these, we're gonna just put them in a square like this, and I'm gonna set this up next to our tree farm, just because wood is probably gonna be the best fuel source for this right now. And then on top of here, we're gonna place ourselves a 3x3 tank and build it up 2 layers. That's all the copper I had. We can also go up another layer if we wanted to. And then on top of our tank here, we're gonna go ahead and place 9 steam engines. And then I think the way that this works is we need to place shafts on here. Yep, there we go. And then we'll just do this on top of all 9 of these. And then probably the best way to get fuel to all of these is just going to be to use a mechanical arm here. And you just shift right click on all these blaze burners, and that will set it to deposit them into. And then if we right click on this depot here, it will take items from it, and then we should just be able to place it down. And we will have to give this power. And to do that, I've just run a shaft all the way from our windmill over there to run this. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw a bunch of planks in here now. We'll get these to this automatically from our tree farm later, but this is probably the fastest way to get this going. And then the last thing we'll need to get to this is a water source, and which actually shouldn't be too hard. We'll just have to throw a mechanical pump right here, and then run a pipe to our tank here. And then if we make this an infinite water source, we should see it start to take some water in and put it into the tank. And there we go, it's actually running already. And now you'll want to make sure that all of these steam engines on top here are connected, because you can see that these ones on the left here are not. So we'll want to make sure those are facing the same way. And then if we throw a cogwheel on this, we should see it gives off rotational power now. And so I'm not actually sure that these two are running fast enough, because if we can look here, we see that the heat is not all the way up, and the water is way lower than it needs to be. So I'm just going to make this faster using a couple large cogwheels, and that definitely helped. We may actually need to add another water source, because this just isn't doing nearly enough that it needs to be. Alright, I've added actually 2 more mechanical pumps to this, and now we can see that the water is all the way up. Now the only problem is the size. I think you may be able to add more fluid tanks on top, but 3x3 is definitely the max size for that. I may add a few more tanks on top and see if that gets it up anymore. Alright, I've got the tank up to the max size now. It was actually a lot bigger than I expected. But we are back down to a water and heat problem. I think the only way to get the heat up any higher is going to be to use blaze cakes as fuel, and that will superheat it, and that should probably put the heat up to max level. As for water, I'm not really sure, because these are running at max speed, I believe. We may just need to add more water sources. But I'd say for our purposes, this is running at a pretty decent speed. All we need to do is throw our alternator out here, and I'm definitely going to come back and pretty all this up later. I just wanted to, I didn't know exactly how big this thing was going to be right away. This is definitely eating through some wood though. I'm gonna have to fill up this chest. I made a couple more of these alternators and just gonna link them up using copper connectors. And then up here I've got an accumulator also from Create, and this is just building up energy connected to those alternators. And then we connect these to the back of each of our machines here. I've got an infuser. We made this last episode. Don't really have a use for it yet, but I've also got a polarizer, and this is just turning raw ore into dust. I think it's 2 to 3, which is definitely better than those smelteries we got down there. And then you'll notice on the left here, there's a temperature gauge. As this goes up, this is progressively going to get more fast, and then when it reaches max temperature, I think it has to cool off. But we can throw a cooler in here. I think the fan is the cheapest to make, and this will just help it cool off faster. And then I believe we can make an electric furnace to actually smelt these. And if you're curious, you can actually use a screwdriver to right click on these, and you can change the input and output. I've just got input on top for the items coming in, and then output on the bottom. And then we should be able to throw all these dusts in here, and this should start cooking them. Now that we have these set up, I believe we're about ready to start working our way towards getting to space. To get started on that, the first thing we're going to need to craft is a launch pad, which is actually fairly expensive. These sturdy sheets each take about 5 obsidian each, and then we need 20 for each launch pad, and we are going to have to make 2 of these, one to launch the rocket and then one to put on the moon once we get there so we can come back. So unless I'm mistaken, that's about 200 obsidian we need just for the launch pads. And not only that, the recipe looks a little messed up here, but the recipe for the rocket actually takes 7 more of these sturdy sheets, which is another 40 obsidian on top of that. The good news is that the recipe for crushing obsidian has about a 75% chance of giving the obsidian back, so we may only need about 100 to make it through this. But yeah, I've definitely got some mining to do. We're also able, now that we have access to Industrial Revolution, we can make a mining drill. I believe this is going to be better than the pickaxe we already have. Here we are. And we are going to have to craft a charge pad to actually charge this thing. Okay, I tried just about everything to get this thing to work. This seems to be the only way to do it for now. But we can just throw our mining drill on here, and it will very slowly charge it up for us. I've got this thing all the way charged up now, and I'm not actually sure if this is able to mine obsidian. Our iron pickaxe is definitely way faster. The good thing about the mining drill is that it's actually able to mine pretty much any block. I think it's able to mine wood too. Yep. And we can upgrade this. I'm not sure if this one's able to mine obsidian either. We may need the diamond one, which I've actually got crafted on up now. This wasn't too difficult. We just need to, just need to throw it in the charger. And then hopefully this one is able to mine obsidian a lot faster than our pickaxe, which definitely looks like it. Now we've got some obsidian mining to do. I'm gonna go grab about a little over a stack and a half maybe. I've got a little over a stack here now, and we can just throw these into the crusher, and hopefully that's enough to get us all of the powdered obsidian we need. And then with these now, we're going to throw them into this system here, which is going to spout lava onto it once we throw some in here. This definitely isn't the best way to do it. We could definitely speed it up a lot more, but it seems to be working fairly well. We'll just have to wait around for a bit while we get enough sturdy sheets. Alright, now that all these are finished, we'll need to throw them into this giant mechanical crafter here to make our launch pads. Also, it turns out that I was wrong in thinking that you needed 5 obsidian powder for each of these. You only need 1, and then it just goes through 5 times, so you don't need nearly as much as I mentioned earlier. And there we go, there's our launch pads. Next we'll need to make one of these oxygen loaders, which doesn't seem to be too complicated also. Here we are. And now if we give this some power, we should see it start to make oxygen for us. We have to put in water, that makes sense. In the back of this here, I've set up just another infinite water source to pump into here. It takes about 20 buckets of water to make 1 bucket of oxygen, so this is going to be a lot better than putting it in manually. And there we go, there's enough for 1 bucket there. Unfortunately, I am out of time for today's episode. There is one last thing we can do today, and believe it or not, it's upgrade our armor. Each one of these netherite pieces requires you to do this sequence here. So total, that's about 40 magma blocks, 40 seared bricks, and a bucket of lava. All 3 of which we have here, so we'll just throw them in this, and then put our netherite at the beginning, and it should make 4 seared mechanisms for us. Here we go, now we've got our blazing mechanisms coming through, and now with all 4 of these, we can throw them into the smithing table and upgrade our gear. And there we go, there's our netherite set. That's gonna do it for today's episode though. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.